Fudmottin here. After 11 hours of riding and through sunny weather and staying at a motel, I woke up to an overcast morning, saturating the landscape and making me wonder if I had come all this way to run into zero visibility at the peak of Mount Washington. And here I am, standing on the opposite side of the road of the motel, taking sort of pictures 360 degrees around. There's an artist drawing in pastels, trees beginning to change color, and here's what I came for. And the sun has come out. Isn't that great? So here's the Mount Washington Auto Road. And, well, just sit back, relax, eat some snacks, drink some drink, and enjoy the view from this camera as I climb on this bike up the mountain auto road.
Congratulations! From wherever in the world you've come, you have arrived at a place of destiny. The experience you are about to enjoy will be remembered for the rest of your life. From where you're seated comfortably in your own vehicle, you will see sights that will amaze and delight you, perhaps even inspire a sense of awe, as it did for President Ulysses Grant. After bringing his family up the same path you now travel, the view from the summit inspired him to say, "Man seems so small when you look at the universe." And believe us, if it's a clear day when you're making this ascent, it will seem like the whole universe is spread at your feet. And if that's not enough, from now on, you'll have the classic bumper sticker badge of honor that declares proudly, "This car climbed Mount Washington." So settle in for a journey up a mountain and back in time to a world above treeline, where history is always in the making, and now you're a part of it. The Mount Washington Auto Road welcomes you to the heart of the White Mountains and your adventure on the Northeast's highest peak. This audio tour will be your information and entertainment guide as you journey on the oldest man-made attraction in the United States. Your driving time to the summit will be approximately 25 minutes, and though the information we're sharing with you is not key to any specific locations, you should listen to Side 1 as you ascend and Side 2 as you descend. If you're listening on a CD, there are no sides, but don't worry, we'll tell you which part to save for the way down. Now, before we get to all the storytelling on how this remarkable road came to be, and some of the funny things folks have done on it, we have some pretty important information to pass along. Among other wonders, you'll be entering the fragile alpine zone, home to many rare and unique forms of plants and flowers. There will be many opportunities to stop your car and walk around, so please, take care to leave these special environments as you found them. It is only because others have been thoughtful in past generations that these small endangered treasures are still here for us to enjoy. If you watch your steps, so to speak, future generations might have the same opportunity. It's only through our continued stewardship that we can preserve and protect the resources that we all treasure. Just imagine, this road opened to the public in 1861, and the scenes which are about to unfold before you have remained unchanged since then. Also unchanged is the need for safe driving. The road's remarkable safety record over the past century and a half is because drivers, whether in the horse-drawn vehicles of the old days or the motor vehicles of this century, respect the basic rules of safety which apply to the trip up and down Mount Washington. As you ascend the mountain and then descend after your visit to the summit, these driving tips will help maximize safety and minimize inconvenience. Please keep the following in mind as our journey continues. The auto road has two-way traffic coming and going at all times. Keep to your side of the road. Don't worry, it's wide enough for 2 cars to pass anywhere on the road. We urge you to drive up in low gear. This means less work for your engine and allows it to run cooler. You should stay in low gear for your entire trip up and down the road. If there ever was a road that was designed for low gear, this is it. Mark Twain once said, "If you don't like the weather in New England, just wait a minute." He must have been thinking of Mount Washington because things can change quickly and dramatically around here. Depending on conditions, you should maintain a speed of approximately 15 to 20 miles per hour. Your actual speed will depend on traffic and prevailing weather conditions. If it seems like you're holding up cars behind you, please be considerate of others and allow them to pass. Avoid using your air conditioner, as this may cause the engine to overwork. There will be plenty of cool mountain air to refresh you as you continue to gain elevation. If the vehicle does begin to run hot, turn on the heater. It may sound strange, but it will actually help cool the engine. Should you find yourself driving in the fog at any time while on the mountain, turn on your headlights for the sake of oncoming traffic. And please remember that it's a New Hampshire state law that all persons under 18 years of age must wear a seatbelt. If either on the way up or down for any reason you need assistance, flag down one of our white and green vans or road crew pickup trucks. Our drivers will be happy to help you in any way. Also remember that cars coming down should yield the right of way to cars going up. Now let's get to the storytelling about the place you've come to. The creation of our Road to the Sky all began back in 1853, when the New Hampshire legislature granted a charter to Colonel David Macomber to build the 8-mile road to the summit. It was a challenging task he'd set for himself, to say the least, but he had a vision. The White Mountains were beginning to gain a reputation as a destination resort, with grand hotels to cater to wealthy travelers for the summer season. His path to the top of New England would surely be the high point of any visit to the North Country. Your presence here today confirms just how right he was. Anyway, one of the first of these grand hotels was the Glen House, which was located at the base area from which you began your climb. This hotel and 3 others burned to the ground over the years around the turn of the century and after, though the base area is still referred to as the Glen, as it always has been. As you drive on through the hardwood forest, try to imagine what the early road builders faced. Dense trees and underbrush, sloping ridges, and immense boulders and ledges were at every turn. Not a particularly inviting place to excavate a roadway, but this was Mount Washington, and no adversity would be too great if it resulted in the conquest of this famed peak. One young woman who visited the Glen House in 1854 explored the work in progress and wrote an article for Harper's Weekly magazine. In it, she recounted her memories of the road as a work in progress.
We have all been walking in the lowering twilight on the road which is making its way up Mount Washington. Though nothing is impossible to modern science, it would seem impossible to vanquish the obstacles to the enterprise, the inevitable steepness of the ascent, the rocky precipices. We passed on through the debris of blasted rocks, stumps of uprooted trees, and heaps of stones, till we got far enough into the mountain to feel its stern solitude. Mary Langdon.
And when that was written in 1854, they were still 7 years from completion. Unfortunately for Colonel Macomber, his financial backing ran out about halfway up the mountain. So it ended up taking 2 companies years of back-breaking hand labor, blasting, logging, clearing, grading to complete the task. During a 2-year delay after the first company failed, it was questionable as to whether or not the project would ever be completed. But the lure of Mount Washington was too great to keep this road from reaching the top. It was particularly difficult to make any progress when natural obstacles such as the weather combined with the primitive technology of the era to slow things down. Since dynamite hadn't yet been invented, all the blasting was done with black powder, a dangerous and at times unstable explosive. In order to split the massive rock ledges which blocked the planned way, individual holes were hand-drilled into solid rock, then filled with black powder, blown up and split apart one at a time. On top of that, all the logging was done with axes, saws, and elbow grease. Teams of oxen and workhorses drew carts filled with gravel. All in all, it was a dirty, dangerous job, largely accomplished by immigrant labor, working in a place not yet fit for man nor beast. But finally, on August 8, 1861, it was done, and done right. Many decades later, in a study completed with aerial surveys and the latest technology, the Army Corps of Engineers could find no improvement to the route as laid out in the middle of the last century. Also somewhat amazing in these days of mergers and massive corporate change is the fact that since that time, road ownership has only changed hands once. Today, this toll road is still privately owned and operated by the Mount Washington Summit Road Company. As you continue upward, glimpses of mountain vistas will begin to reveal themselves. But it wasn't always that way. In fact, around the turn of the century, logging barons had virtually clear-cut much of what is now the White Mountain National Forest. The decimation of these native forests created not only fire and erosion dangers, but created such an unsightly mess that the cause of conservation was taken up by the average citizens and politicians alike. As a result, the Weeks Act of 1911 established the White Mountain National Forest, among many others. These mountains remain protected today as a pristine reminder of the natural beauty of the wilderness. It is ironic, though, that it took the near destruction of everything you see around you to motivate the effort to save it. Thankfully, what you see today is remarkably similar to what the first adventure seekers found in 1861. It was called the Carriage Road in those days, and there were as many as 25 mountain wagons and 120 horses in service each day of the season. These mountain wagons were specially designed and constructed for the Carriage Road by the Abbott Downing Coach Works in Concord, New Hampshire. This company manufactured the famous Concord stagecoaches, which were used in practically every Western movie ever made. The Carriage Road mountain wagons were pulled by 6 horses and seated as many as 12 passengers. A typical trip took 4 hours up, and though no one was in a rush in those days, passengers were at times asked to assist with one task. On windy days, those making the journey were asked to get out and collect rocks to add weight to the wagon so it wouldn't tip over in the strong winds above treeline. The ride down was another adventure in itself, taking a good 2 hours. The wheels on every trip down wore through a set of leather brakes as the horse, driver, and wagon fought gravity the whole way. Also, the Carriage Road stages weren't alone on the road by any means. Individual hotels had their own coaches for their guests, while other folks drove the family buckboard or surrey or rode on horseback. Then, as now, it was an active road that required the driver's full attention. As the word continued to spread, more and more people found their way to New Hampshire's North Country. New railroads continued to push their way past the lakes and into the hills. And while still a rural setting, the world had finally beat its path to Mount Washington's door. Long before traveling tourists found Mount Washington, way back in the early 1600s, it was thought to be a place laden with riches. The quartz and mica, which you'll see glinting amidst the gray rock above treeline, was mistakenly considered to be diamonds and precious metals. No doubt many a disappointed early settler came to that realization after his long climb revealed only long views, not treasure. As you continue upward, you'll begin to notice startling changes in the vegetation. Nearer to the bottom is a typical northeastern hardwood forest, composed of maple, oak, birch, and beech trees. Further on, you'll see fewer hardwoods and more evergreens, like balsam, fir, and spruce. More significantly, these trees are diminishing greatly in size as the combination of wind, cold, and scarcity of proper soil create a difficult growing environment. Continuing upward, you are entering Krumholtz, or crooked wood zone. In some cases, these stunted and beautifully twisted and gnarled trees, with a height of no more than 2 or 3 feet, are more than 100 years old. These unique trees have adapted to survive in this often inhospitable location, as has a wide variety of wildlife that call this mountain range home. Moose, black bear, and deer are among the larger species, while bobcat, beaver, porcupines, raccoons, foxes, and countless types of birds can be found on Mount Washington slopes. Even on the summit, mice, moles, shrews, and voles have adapted to survive life in this extreme environment. As your journey takes you further up the mountainside, you may notice it has begun to get a bit cooler, and that the trees continue to get smaller. as the road goes on to its height of more than a mile in the sky, 6,288 feet to be exact. The climate changes with it, eventually reaching the equivalent temperature one might find 600 miles north of here in the Arctic tundra region. This is further exemplified by the truly stunning array of alpine flowers, lichens, and mosses, some of which can be seen preserved at the Observatory Museum on the summit. Just think of it, in the distance of just the first few miles upward, you have now traveled from the more familiar hardwood forests of our region through the Krumholtz to an area more like that in Alaska and Greenland. In total, there are dozens of rare species of plants found in the alpine zone of the Presidential Range. Plants like the dwarf cinquefoil live only in the White Mountains and nowhere else on the planet, and are listed as federally endangered species. Many of these unusual plants, though small, are very old, and some varieties don't even flower until they're 20 or more years old. Overall, many experts believe this mountainous landscape you are viewing to be more than 10,000 years in the making. So again, we ask that when leaving your vehicle to explore the mountainside, you're aware that the endless vistas are only one of the most obvious wonders. There's an amazing world just under your feet, which, if not cared for, could be lost forever. Never pick or step on any flowers. When out of your vehicle above treeline, please step only on the rocks. In this way, our fragile ecosystem will be something to marvel at for centuries to come. Scientific interest in Mount Washington has been ongoing for more than 200 years. In the last century, just the novelty of being here was enough to inspire whole books. One famous writer of the mid-1800s, T. Starr King, had this to say about the mountain's various climates.
I send you a greeting this morning from the cupola of New Hampshire. If perchance you are suffering from the heat when this missive reaches you, let your eyes cool themselves by reading that just outside the tip-top house, the mercury is at 34 degrees. The ride from the glen was very easy. We rose indeed by climate as well as ridges. It was July at the base, late September on the ledge, and November at the apex. Reverend Thomas Starr King.
The tip-top house he refers to was built in 1853, and you'll see it in just a bit. It is the only original summit building that survived the Great Fire of 1908. The summit, as you'll see it today, has evolved greatly from how it all began so long ago, but it's always been a hub of activity for travelers to the White Mountains. The summit community in the 1890s was a very busy place. It featured a large hotel, stage office, railroad station, and even its own newspaper. Among the Clouds was the first and only newspaper ever to be published on a mountaintop. All visitors to the peak had their names published in its pages, along with local news and gossip. In fact, the latest daily editions used to make their way down after hours on the Cog railway track on a contraption known as a slide board, or more popularly, the Devil's Shingle. Real history was made again in 1899 when a little-known inventor named Freeland O. Stanley drove his locomobile up the road. He did it with little fanfare, beginning his expedition from Newton, Massachusetts, with the goal of finishing on the top of Mount Washington. The automotive age was dawning, and on August 31st, 1899, an unlikely little vehicle, looking like a horse-drawn buggy without the horse, became the first motor car to climb the mountain. As noted in Flora Stanley's account of the adventure, their journey received more laughter than laurels, as motor vehicles were still a virtually unknown sight to the general public. The amazed responses of the folks in each village they passed through, combined with the success of the Mount Washington Ascent, proved the value of this well-conceived publicity stunt. But few realized that Stanley's vehicle was the first of many that would follow, and that a new age had begun. Even F.E. Stanley himself, F.O.'s twin brother and partner, wasn't sure of what their new invention would be capable of, as expressed in an 1897 letter to his wife after one of their carriage horses nearly caused an accident in town. I wrote you some time ago about motor carriages. Well, I am building one. I'm making all the plans, and it will weigh 350 pounds, and it will be 4 inches wider and 5 inches longer than our best buggy was. It will cost me about $500. It will not be afraid of a steamroller and will have no bad habits. It will stand without hitching. And perhaps that is all it will do. Well, as history has shown us, it did do more than stand still, as did the Stanley brothers, who went on to create the still famous Stanley steamer. You will soon be approaching the summit. If it is a clear day, you're seeing some of the most magnificent views to be found anywhere in the United States. If it's not a clear day, then you are truly learning what it means to be among the clouds. You've passed the Horn, Oh My God Curve, the Cragway, Cow Pasture, Mother-in-Law's Drop, and Homestretch. In any case, the summit community welcomes you. Take the time to visit the restored Tip Top House, which holds the record as the oldest summit building, standing since 1851. The Sherman Adams State Park building will offer you a top-of-the-world perspective from the observation deck, or a hot meal and restrooms inside. While there, wander through the Mount Washington Observatory Museum downstairs for a look at some rare mementos of the past. And if you only see one thing, be sure to stop in the historic Summit Stage Office, which is where the observers huddled while measuring the world's highest recorded wind, 231 miles per hour in 1934. You won't have any trouble recognizing which building it is. It's the one that's chained to the ground. If your headlights are on, be sure and turn them off before you explore the summit. This concludes Side 1. Allow the tape to finish, or stop the CD here, and then save the rest for when you begin the trip back down. Enjoy yourself at the top of New England.
Well, I just played for you the English Up track of the Mount Washington Auto Road Audio Tour CD, written and produced by Steve Camming, narrated by Bill Thomas. And I picked up this CD down at the white building that was on the right side past the toll house. Forget what it was called. Anyway, they have a separate sticker for motorcycles. Motorcycles also cost less to go up. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm talking about the comfort of your car while I'm getting my ass beaten by the road, and the camera is suffering worse. I'm really not sure where along the way the epoxy delaminated, but it ended up being held in place by two rubber bands that were strictly there for holding the plastic shield that I have for it to protect it from, gravel and stuff chucked up by cars in front of me. And as you can see, that was a real hazard on this road. Meanwhile, that van up ahead has been irritating me the whole time I've been following it. I don't know if that Subaru driver pulled over just because he was irritated as well or what. Anyway, yeah, I would have made it up the hill considerably quicker if that man wasn't there. And the fear of oncoming traffic has pretty much prevented me from trying to just blow by these two guys. Because I'm actually climbing in first gear and pulling on. The motor is chugging at about 2,000 RPMs. And there was one spot where you may have heard it. I don't know if you could hear it over the narration, but I actually slipped my clutch a bit so that I could keep the revs up so the engine wouldn't stall when I was going really slow up a steep grade. May average 12%, but with all those flatter areas and that one little bit that actually went down a bit, as you can see, there are places that are considerably steeper than 12%. And that ambulance back there was loading up a motorcyclist who went down before I arrived at the mountain. He thought it would be a good idea to just go down the hill in neutral and use his brakes the whole way, and apparently overheated his brakes and crashed. The guy at the toll gate told me this as he was handing me my receipt and this bike climbed Mount Washington sticker. Okay, so this is the end of this part. See you later.